What's up, everyone? Welcome to the latest installment of Life After Strange right here on Player One versus the World. And my first guest today is none other than the wonderfully talented BAFTA-nominated actor and the voice of Karen Reynolds herself, Jolene Andersen. Jolene, how are you doing?
Hi everybody. I'm great. Thanks for asking.
So let's just get straight into this. Take us back to the audition process for Life is Strange 2. Was the character of Karen the one that you specifically auditioned for? And did you know that you were specifically auditioning for a role in Life is Strange 2?
Okay, I think this is going to be a little disappointing to hear, but I knew nothing about the Life is Strange game or franchise. I know that I work in a lot of video games, but I'm not a gamer myself. So I knew nothing about Karen. I knew nothing about the game or the story or any of that stuff. And I just saw a breakdown for a voiceover job with a company that I work with very often, Horseless Cowboy. I work with them a lot. And so the breakdown of the character seemed really interesting, and I actually didn't even know it was a video game. I thought it was just a random like voiceover kind of job. So I just liked the way that the character sounded. I'm always looking for gigs, so I went and I loved the dialogue too. It was really interesting. It was this mom talking to her son, and now that the game's out, it's kind of that scene where she's like, look, I'm not asking for forgiveness, like I'm not apologizing, so she sort of had this like edgy, non-apologetic sort of like chip on her shoulder while she's talking to this young kid when he's smoking. And I don't know if you remember that, where she's like, smoking's bad for you, and they get in this kind of a little bit of a tiff. And so I was just really kind of attracted to that, and and I felt that really spoke to me as a person. Like when you go on an audition, you want or whatever, and you just go in there and give your rendition more or less. So even though she was written kind of edgy, I loved that I could kind of throw it away and was kind of flippant, and I wasn't sure how they would receive that performance of the material. And then I get in the recording studio with Philip, right? And I've worked with him on a million games, and I was like, what is this exactly? I don't get a script beforehand or anything like that. And they're like, oh, it's a game. It's a video game called Life is Strange. It's big. Everyone, it's a big deal. And I was like, it's weird though, because it's this really dramatic kind of, it's a very nuanced character. It's an interesting performance. And then they told me it was sort of this like pick your own ending kind of game. So I was just attracted to her vibe. And at the audition, I just did what I felt right and what I wanted to do, and I think it just kind of fit, and the rest is kind of history. So we'll cover
Brilliant.
all that.
So
yeah.
when you auditioned for it, how long did it take for you to hear back a response that you landed the role, and what was the reaction like when you realized the full scale of the project?
I don't remember how long it took them to send a booking. It's always sort of I don't remember. What's weird about these things is that you kind of go in, and most of the time you don't know. It's always really top secret with the video games. So they never tell you. Even my character's name wasn't Karen at the audition, so they don't tell you. So all of a sudden you'll get some really mysterious email that's an obvious role, and you're like, what is that? What was that? Who is this? I don't know. So I don't remember what that lag time is. Sometimes it's weeks, sometimes it's months, and you just get the strange email and you're like, oh, I think it was that thing I went out for. I can't remember. So once I went into the recording studio, it was all the same old team, right, that I worked on these other games with, and they kind of told me about it. I was excited, but I still knew nothing about the game. Like I didn't know that there was this huge fan base. I didn't know there was all this love for these really cool characters. What I was really excited about is really just the role itself. Like Karen's just an amazing role to play, regardless of the game and the franchise. The fact that I'm not sure how like everyone that was working at Square Enix, but my voice director, of course, Philip, is a man. My director in France that was chiming in, Michel, he's a man. The people I think that had written the parts, they were men. And for the direction for my character, for this woman who essentially abandoned her children to go off and like join some hippie and abandon her husband who eventually died, and for her to be so unapologetic, and they didn't want her to feel bad or remorse or any of these other things. I was just really thrilled that these men were writing such a feminist role for me. that was probably the most exciting part, was just the role itself, the way it was being directed, the way it had been written, the nuance that Karen has. And I felt really challenged by the role, and to be able to work with those gentlemen, like that was really magical for me. That was really, really fun.
Just sound amazing. When you said that the characters had, like, she wasn't specifically named as Karen, do you remember what the code name was for the character? I've always
No.
had. Okay, fair
Woman,
enough.
mother,
That's fine.
Barbara. Like they're always so bizarre. Like
That's the only reason I
I
asked,
could
because
probably look up. I could probably find my side somewhere, but God only knows. Yeah.
that's the only reason I asked, because the other voice actors I've spoken to are always like, I remember it's like Ruby, or they just don't remember at all. So I thought I'd ask anyway.
Probably female.
Um, exactly. When you landed the role of Karen, did you decide to dig into the series, or what was the kind of approach that you went for the role?
No, I didn't. And you know, just like the Resident Evil with like Ada and all that kind of stuff, you know, even though there's all this history, all these things you can kind of reference, I really feel like they're creating a character for right now in this moment.
Mhm.
And you know, the script that I get is just a narrative script. There's no gameplay in there or anything, so I'm just given a script as an actress to sort of like dig into. So I didn't I wasn't concerned. First of all, they don't ask me to do that. I mean, if someone had said, hey, will you sort of like see where your character fits, I would have done that. But there's something, you know, I was given the material, and I gave my interpretation. They loved it enough to give me the role, and now we're all together. And that, I feel, is kind of where like my head's at, you know, like I want to create this character for me, for now, for this room, you know. I wasn't that much of a I feel like I leave it to them to decide whether or not she's fitting into the game somehow. I was given a story and a world to you know, to sort of like play in, and like that's enough for me. It's more fun to see after the fact how she fits into the world. But at the time, I really don't do that. I really feel like I don't want to rehash things. I don't want to jump to conclusions. I don't. It's a lot more fun to create that I don't know much about, and and I think it's more effective to just sort of play what's, you know, what's sort of like in front of you. Kind
Okay,
of.
I understand that. So you have a history of gaming before you came into Life is Strange 2. You played in Titanfall 2, you were in Rise of the Tomb Raider. How important were those experiences, like going into a role of Karen? Like, obviously you have experience with voice acting. How did it help you prepare for the role? Did you feel a bit more comfortable going into that role?
You know what's really interesting and what's so wonderful about Karen? So my other video game roles are a little bit more, you know, they're kind of these, I don't want to say, almost like, they're these big characters, you know, they're these powerful women, they're like warriors, or they're these big commanders, or they're, you know, there's sort of these extreme characters that sort of game world, right? Karen is a whole different story. It felt to me like just a regular acting job, like any other. She's so she's not a superhero. She's not a larger than life character. She's just a woman. She's just an everyday woman with all the same struggles as anyone else. Is what I really loved about the job and the game and everything. It was really fascinating to see that people play games like this.
So we don't actually see Karen make an appearance until episode 4 in the game, which is quite late on for a character like this. With that said, did you record lines when episode 4 was in development, or did you record at the beginning? What was that process like, seeing as your character came so late into the series?
You know, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how they did. You know, I'm not sure what happens on the other side necessarily, especially since, you know, they just book me in a slot, and then I show up to the sound studio and we all work together. But there are the other actors coming in and out, so I'm imagine they did the whole season all at once, and
Right.
then kind of put it together and then put it out there, because we were always
Okay.
crossing paths, you know, in the waiting room and stuff. So.
Was there any like memorable exchanges with any of the particular actors, like just chatting with them? Was there just something that?
Oh, well, you know, it's always fun to like meet your son. You know what I mean? They're like, "Oh, I'm your mom. Like, I'm the whatever." But you never work together. You know, unfortunately or fortunately, that'd be odd in a sound booth to do that. But it was nice after working on it for a while, for like a couple months, to then meet sort of my cohorts, and they were usually my kids. So that's always like a fun thing. And then you meet their parents, because they are literally kids.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So.
So, what were your first thoughts when they showed you a picture of Karen, or when you first saw Karen? What were you like when just looking at the character?
I did not first see her until the game came out.
Really?
And yeah, and I was like, oh, that's cool. She kind of looks like me, you know, she's this sort of earthy, kind of like desert lady. That was really fascinating. That was cool to see, especially since there was no mocap. Like, I don't think they'd used motion capture actors. It's illustrated.
Hmm.
So that was neat. I've never sort of done that before. But I thought it was really cool. It's a really cool game. And she did look a little bit like me. And yeah, it was really fascinating. It's always fascinating to see it when it all comes together, because I'm not a gamer and I'm not part of that world. And it's all
Yeah.
very nebulous for me as we're working through it. And really my only focus is as an actor, living through these moments and doing, you know, so when it all comes together and I finally see the final product, it's always just so fascinating to me. The gaming world is so fascinating.
It is
Really
incredible.
cool.
It's so different. Um, so, Karen is a very complex character. We see that from the story rolling out, and you've touched upon the idea, like, you're playing this mother character. Her arc is heavily involved in the son-mother dynamic.
Yeah.
So, when you have those meaningful exchanges, did you record lines with either Gonzalo Martin or Roman George in the studio, or was it just crossing by and like you had to record them separate?
No, No, what's fascinating is you're in a little bit of a vacuum. So not only do I know nothing about the series or know nothing about anything, I've just been sort of, and I'm not given an entire script either. That's not how it works. You're just sort of, when you're scheduled for a session, they kind of just send you the script for the day. And it's sort of just all these lines. And I actually don't know the bigger story. I don't know what's coming next or
Mhm.
where she's come from or where she's going. And it's all shot just like anything else in television, out of sequence. So I just have to rely really heavily on Philip. Really, Philip's the genius in this whole story, to walk me through it and bring out all those moments. He's an incredible director. And we never record together. It's never like that. You're always alone in a recording booth with your directors. Michelle's on the line, and Philip's in the office with me in the studio. And then that's it. We never work together. I don't think I've ever done a voice job like that. It's just you. And
Okay,
sometimes you never meet the other people that you are in
cool.
it with you. Yeah.
So, and in her recording, when you were in the recording studio, some of her segments are really like emotionally heavy. You talk about the scene where she has a cigarette, and just like some of the meaningful exchanges she has with Sean. What was it like recording those lines? Like, how do you get into the mood for those kind of lines? Like, just to kind of record, because it's really emotionally heavy to be invested in
Well, I'm an
something like that.
actor, Adnan. That's that's what we do. It's funny. It's almost like I feel like voiceover is just like kind of doing anything else. Like whether I'd shown up to set and someone had been like, "This is what the scenes are that we're going to shoot today." That's exactly what it's like in the voice booth. Like these are the scenes. Although with one of the things I loved about this job too is I was a little bit unsure of what to do with Karen. You know, I would kind of come in a little bit. Knowing where to go or what she's talking about or what's happening. And again, I will give all of the accolades to Phil for then talking me through it and directing me through it and saying, this is what I want. I need this heightened and this is what's happening to me to bring out those performances. And then we would just work together that way. And Michelle too, and she'd chime in and he'd be like, well, she needs to be kind of like, it's almost like they're writing and creating the character in the room with me.
Mhm.
Uh, so beautiful and wonderful. And that's kind of how it happened. We would just go through it step by step and create it like you kind of would anything else, whether you're on a set or in a, like a sound booth or.
So obviously we've spoken a lot about Philip, and we're going to move on to Philip as well. Like, I only ever hear very good things about Philip from literally every voice actor I've spoken to on this series. What was it like, particularly working with him to bring Karen to life? And did you have any kind of like memorable exchanges over a particular scene of recording where it was like the recording was just like perfect, where you were like, let's make this just a bit more like, performance wise?
That's all him. No, I'm always insecure about whatever happens in the booth. I always think I'm like, I don't know, was that what I need to say? It's great. So memorable times, on this particular, I have a lot of memorable moments with Phil, but on this particular one, no, it was just really special to me because again, because she wasn't this big character, she's not a monster, she's not a warrior, she's not all this, like, just because the performance was so nuanced, I felt like Phil held my hand through this entire thing, and he carved out this character, and directed me through it in such a beautiful way. It really was one of my favorite acting gigs of all time, because of that kind of like growth and that direction and that kind of guidance. So that's, I mean, I would say that's really memorable. I would say that this is probably my favorite thing I've ever worked on with Phil. And I believe that, you know, that nomination I got for the character I felt he deserved, really.
Mm-hmm. Okay, amazing. That's really quite a nice experience to have on just one project and feel that way. So we're going to go into more heavy stuff. This game touches upon all kinds of themes. It has a diverse cast of characters. In Life is Strange 2, you have a reference to Donald Trump's wall. There's racism, brutality, police brutality, religious cults, LGBT themes. Was this something that you were kind of surprised with when you started seeing the overall game come together? And I think you even mentioned it yourself with like Karen coming across as almost like a feminist, very empowering character.
No, it's very progressive. I just couldn't believe that it was such a popular game. It is a massive fan game. It's one of the biggest games in the world. And for them to do that, I'm thrilled. That it was so well received. There wasn't any like backlash in regards to any of those things. So I could tell that it was a very progressive project already, and the team was already like looking in that direction. So no, I'm thrilled with all of it, quite frankly.
So we you know, Karen's fate at the end of the game varies depending on how players play out the game, and there's different endings for each one. And we don't know if Don't Nod will continue the story of the Diaz brothers on for another Life is Strange. But say if they did, and obviously we know that Karen is still alive in this universe, would you want to come back and play the character if that option came up in another Life is Strange game?
Of course. Yeah. Like I said, she's one of my favorite characters ever. It was one of my favorite acting roles ever. So absolutely. Gosh, that would be ideal. Yeah.
Amazing. Was there any particular scene you enjoyed recording the most out of your segments with Karen?
You know, I like those more touching, you know, because when you're recording for games, there's a lot of just like abstract, random lines kind of, and you don't get to kind of play a whole scene. You just sort of have like this line that comes out of nowhere, and then you need a lot of, you know, they have to explain a lot of things to you, and you're like, why is she saying this? What world does this line live in? Like, where is she coming from? So whenever I have a chance to kind of like really dig into those, you know, those mother-son any of those conversations in the hotel room, you know, get really kind of a little bit more emotional, get a little bit more meaty. Those are always the best. Those are always really fun because you can really get in there, which is not something you get to do in a sound booth in a video game. Like if you're doing the mocap, you get to get into the scene, and it's all very real and it all feels very alive, and you get swept away in the story. You don't often get that in the sound booth. On the sound booth, you're very often just sort of like and putting new things in there, doing rewrites. But in this case, no, we could live out these really beautiful scenes. And I love those. I love the more meaty, touchy scenes where it gets kind of complicated, you know. Yeah, those are really fun to do.
It sounds incredible. So Life is Strange 2 ends, and then you're nominated for a BAFTA. And if I know correctly off IMDb, which is hopefully a reliable source, this was your first major nomination. What was that like, finding out that BAFTA nomination came in for this role?
Oh my God. Okay, so this is how amazing it is, because I just went to a random audition for some random voiceover thing that didn't mean it. It was just a gig. It was seriously just a gig. It wasn't even, I was like, oh yeah, I should do that. I should do voiceover. It wasn't even a lot of money. It wasn't a big time commitment. It didn't have any like attachment to anything. I was just like, cool, I can do that. So to go from this just like random thing because I wasn't busy, turning into not only an amazing character and an amazing experience with a team that I love, to then being a part of a game that I didn't realize was so huge. Like, you know, the game comes out and then all these fans contact me and I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. To then be nominated for a BAFTA, like I was blown away on just how life works, you know. It's so exciting. It was so exciting for me, and I was so thrilled. I'm still thrilled. I'm still thrilled just to have the nomination and to see something like kind of come to fruition like that. it was just so great, and for everything about it to be so wonderful. I couldn't. It's like one of the great joys of my life, to be frankly, to be honest.
Incredible. So we go from Life is Strange 2 and a BAFTA nomination to Resident Evil 2 Remake and playing an iconic character like Ada Wong. How did you feel getting that role straight after playing this role? And
oh no, Resident Evil was done and dusted before Karen came along. Yeah.
right, okay.
So we'd finished RE2 already. It's just, there's a lot of lag time between like when the games come out and all that kind of stuff. So I'd already done that. And so that too, I didn't realize was going to be as big as it was. Things where you just get this. Ada? I mean, she's one of the greatest, again, characters I've ever played. She's one of my very favorite. So not only do I get this incredible character, I get to bring her into this new world, this new this kind of the remake, the new world, and then for it to be received so well and for everyone to go crazy over RE2 was amazing. And then and then Karen was just icing on the cake. Like, it's just, the forward momentum, it never it gets unexciting, but they were very different projects through different studios, different casting, well, no, I think actually it was the same casting office, but different teams, different everything. But the fans of these games are the best. Like,
They are.
This family that I've been invited into now because of these really amazing roles. I feel so loved and so grateful, and it's the way it's all come together is just really magical.
Amazing. So we, you take on a role like Ada Wong. She's such an iconic character. There are different people who have voiced her. How did you want to make your Ada stand out from the other incarnations? Was there something you wanted, just like a little edge you wanted to put on her, or like?
Again, I was given a script. I gave them my interpretation. I'd played Ada sort of before. I'd done mocap for Biohazard for the movie, and I didn't get to voice her at the time, but I was able to. But you have to you have to go through all the motions. You kind of have to be her, and you still have to do all the dialogue on set, like in the space when you do that, even though they don't record it. Back in the day, they do now, right? So I had a little bit of her vibe already, or a lot of it, I don't know. And so when I pitched myself to them for the remake, and I got the script, I just kind of gave them the Ada that I had always imagined. And then I kind of never looked back. Like, I didn't go back to the other people that had voiced her, and because this was the Resident Evil for today. Like, they were bringing it into the current time. Like, that was the whole point, right? And they were trying to revamp all these characters. So I just didn't look backwards. I just trusted that they trusted me, and we all worked together just like we did with Karen. I just trusted that all of our visions coming together collectively were going to create this. And nobody asked me to do that. No one was like, could you go back and like see what these other people have done? I don't think they wanted us to do that. So I don't know how that sounds to people, but I don't kind of go back and see how I should do it. I just feel like I trust that if they cast me for the role, then they're happy with what I'm bringing to the table. And then, you're not alone in it either. Especially with RE2, I've got like 5 directors. We've got people from all over the world. I have a lot of support and a lot of guidance and a lot of direction. And I just trusted that we were going to, make it work and make it great. So
What did you make of her design when you saw the Ada in the end? Like, just the overall design of the character, you're like, yeah, that's the kind of character I imagined I was voicing.
Oh yeah, well, I already knew of Ada. When I got Biohazard, I didn't know what that was. It was my first mocap job. I just thought it'd be fun to do mocap because my friends were doing it. And of course, you can imagine the breakdown of Ada's character is pretty exciting and fun. So I wanted to do that. So then I started Googling her. I was like, who's Ada Wong? And I was like, woo, she's hot. I was like, she's this cool, then I sort of read a bit more of her backstory. And so no, I love all the renditions of Ada. They're all really sexy. And, when I do the convention, I love that everybody has their favorite Ada from a different time. And they're all amazing. They're all exquisite. There's never been a boring Ada,
We have a really iconic character like Ada, and it's not hard for games to have those kind of characters move into their own spin-off titles and lead the game. Would you want to come back and play the role of Ada if that happened? What would be the ideal scenario? Would you want to do the motion capture as well this time, not just the voice acting?
Oh yeah, no. And for the last one for RE2, I did full performance. We all did the mocap and the voice, so they're completely ours. Yeah, I would love to play Ada again. It's like a dream. I really hope they bring me back. I know that they're doing another remake, and Ada continues throughout them. So I would be heartbroken. I'd be heartbroken if she went to someone else, because I feel like she's mine now. You know. So of course, I would love to play Ada forever, both in the moc, and I actually prefer doing the mocap and the performance, because I actually don't like it when it's separate. I don't really enjoy. I always enjoy voicing a character, but I don't like it when I don't get to do the other side, because as an actor, like, it's a full performance, quite literally, you know, like,
Mhm.
you create the way they move and the way they belong in a space, and then you also do the voice. So I would certainly hope that I would do both, but I would be grateful if they invited me back in any capacity, honestly.
Fantastic. And actually, we'll add on for one more thing, because I'm quite interested. You mentioned about the conventions and how you've seen different ADAs, like people have their own kind of like takes on it. And I know that you visited conventions as well, where people kind of
Hmm.
meet and greeted you. Have they spoken to you about playing Karen, about Ada? Like, what are those kind of experiences to share with
Yeah.
those people, and how touching is it to kind of like feel like that they've really appreciated your performances?
Oh, there's nothing better. I don't. It's the greatest thing that's come out of this whole thing, especially with RE2, because it was such a big the conventions before. I do love that they appreciate every project. I do. When I go, they do want posters of Karen signed, and they want the Titanfall too. They get really excited about that, and the Tomb Raider. You know, like, it encompasses all fans come, and they want all of that stuff. So it's really exciting. What was the second half of that question?
Almost.
Oh,
Sorry.
the interaction with them. No, they love these characters so much, and they love you so much, and they want to talk about it, and it's almost like they're like, would you mind if we talked about how much we love this character? And you're like, we love these characters too. Like, for this huge fan base to come out and say, like, we love them as much as you do, like, it's this beautiful symbiotic relationship where I just want to hug and kiss all of them. Like, it is such a rewarding, lovely thing for them to come out, and they pay long lines, and they fly from all over the country, and sometimes all over the world, just to come and shake your hand or take a photo or do whatever. And I just think that's absolutely incredible. And that love that they show us is, I love reaching out to the fans. I love going to those conventions, and being able to hug each and every one of them and talk to them for a few moments. And um, yeah, it's really special, and I love it. It's one of my favorite things of the job, you know.
That's really good to hear. So that's the end of this show. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. And
Love being
stage,
here.
yeah, and thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And guys, stay tuned. There'll be more episodes coming. I had a very wonderful guest on today, and hopefully more to come. So we'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye, everybody.